Merry meet and welcome to Thrilling Thursday here at Ariel's Corner. This is Ariel Gatoga, and we have the wrong video playing here. Hang on a second. We're supposed to have a fire to warm our hearts. Let me find my fire here. I just want a fireplace, I think. Maybe this one. This'll do. Okay, that's better. Welcome to Thrilling Thursday. We are going to be starting our class in just a moment. That is Witches Primer 17. So next week is the last week of a Witches Primer. So start thinking about what you want next. I'm going to do a poll sometime over the next week or week and a half. If you want to move right into the second course in the Witches Trilogy, the Witchcraft Trilogy, which is the intermediate class called Witchcraft Beyond the Basics, or if you want to do something else. We also have a Kabbalah class that I'm working on. It's almost finished, but I can definitely finish it well ahead of time. There's a Kabbalah class, a course. There's the second installment of Basic Angel Magic, which I've been sort of working on. So all kinds of stuff we could do. We have that Prosperity and Money Magic course that we could go through and clean up a bit because it's kind of all over the place. I have a bunch of courses, so I'll get and then if there's something that you want a course on that I haven't done one on, I'm always open. I can't guarantee I'll do it because just because you want it doesn't mean that's something that I understand or that I'm an expert at. But if it's something that's in my wheelhouse, I'm happy to do it if I have enough interest. So I will get a poll out over the next couple weeks, sometime in time. All right, let's see. We have chat streams going on each of these, chat threads going on each of these streams. If you have any questions for me, you can put them right in the chat thread, and I will do my best to answer them before the end of the stream. We don't have a premiere today, so we're not on as much of a time crunch, although I do have to go to work. So we can't waste too much time here, Ariel. Get going. Let's see. We have, what was I going to tell you? Well, go to our website, arielscorner.com, and you'll see at the bottom of every page in the footer are the social media links, and please follow us everywhere. And also within that, we have a private Facebook group and also a Discord server so that you can be part of the community. We'd love to have you there. We have a shop, arielscornershop.com, arielscornershop.com. That's affiliate links right now, but we will be having a new shop that's going to be opening up fairly soon. We're not going to rush anything, but we will keep you abreast of that. Just know that that's on its way. Let's see. If you would like to donate, you can do that by going to paypal.me/arielgatoga. paypal.me/arielgatoga. If you're on YouTube, you could use a super sticker, super chat, or super thanks. And what was I going to tell you? Oh yeah, all of the Witchcraft Trilogy, a Witches Primer, Witchcraft Beyond the Basics, and Advancing Your Craft are purely non-denominational. There's absolutely no tradition associated with them, no religion associated with them. You can be anything or nothing. It all is just pure magic. So, but then I also share different aspects of my personal path that I walk. And sometimes people get that confused and they think, oh, I thought this was non-denominational, but then he's talking about Psalms and he's talking about Lucifer. It's just like, two things can be true. So we have a lot of non-denominational training, and yes, I do share my path with you as well. So, but you're like with anything, just take what you like and leave the rest, right? That's how it works. Nobody's proselytizing anybody into any kind of tradition. There's nothing to sign up for. There's no charge for anything. This is all just for your own education. Use what you like and leave the rest. All right, let's get going, Ariel. If you're in a place where it is safe and appropriate, please close your eyes and begin to take some nice, long, slow, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more light and peace entering your body and mind. With each exhale, feel like you're letting go of all tension in your body, along with anything in your mind that you do not want. Inhaling peace, exhaling, letting go. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, and it lights us and the grove with a sacred golden light. This is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it easily and efficiently burns away everything unlike itself, leaving us safe and serene. Into this space, we invoke the presence of our celestial parents. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves to be a mother and father, a god and goddess. We also invite the presence of our angels, our guides, our teachers. We ask that we be guided as we walk upon the way, becoming happier, more peaceful, wiser, more powerful, more magical, and more loving people. Thank you very much. Blessed be. This is Lesson 17 of A Witch's Primer Revisited, and today is all about color magic, focusing primarily on the popular method of employing color magic, which is candle magic. But then we'll be talking about some other applications of color magic as well. I have a whole course on color magic, which I have not yet released. And I don't know why I've been dragging my feet on that. Usually when I drag my feet, it's because there's something that's not quite ready. And I always try to listen to my intuition, but I expect that course should be out fairly soon. It's important to understand that candle magic is not the only way to practice color magic. And it's essential for those of us who might not be able to use candles for various reasons to learn other ways to also employ color in our magic. But we'll start with candle magic. I do have some downloadable handouts for A Witch's Primer, and you may want to download those. If you're not registered for A Witch's Primer, it's a free course. All you do is go to arielgatoga.com/AWP, arielgatoga.com/AWP. There's no charge at all, but that does give you access to the few downloads that are available to you. And there are some correspondences that might be helpful for you, especially in regards to colors and planets and things like that. So, like I said, the most common way to employ color in magic is through candle magic. But another way to understand just getting used to color magic is through the days of the week. Each day of the week is ruled by a different planet, and each planet rules a different color or family of colors. So each day of the week, you can just sort of think about what the planet is, what the color is, and you can choose to wear a particular color that day or incorporate that color in one way or another as you're getting used to aligning yourself with these different energies. So the Sunday is the sun, gold and orange. Monday is the moon, white and silver. Tuesday is Mars, red, especially crimson. Wednesday is Mercury, yellow, sometimes lavender. Thursday is Jupiter, usually royal blue and purple. Friday is Venus, usually greens, especially teal and turquoise, as well as pink and coral. Saturday is Saturn, that's usually forest green, black and brown. So those are just some ways that you can start to think about what colors mean, and just aligning them to those different planets can be a quick way to start to get a little bit more of an understanding. But the plain colors themselves also just without any planetary correspondences, have some meanings. So I want to just go through those real quickly. Black is often used for protection, banishing. It can represent negative energy and cursing. And it can be used to obviously to curse, but also to break curses and bad habits, etc. White is an all-purpose color. If you don't have any colored candles, you can always use white in place of any color. It represents by itself purity, serenity, peace, truth. Gray tends to be used for shielding and also neutralizing. It can be used in things like self-defense. It's usually used to neutralize other colors, other energies. Red represents passion, sex, bravery, energy, lust, strength, and willpower. Yellow represents focus, intelligence, logic, mental clarity, and ideas. Green represents prosperity, money, earth magic, healing, harmony, balance. Teal, which is halfway between the green and the blue, represents sophistication, tranquility, healing, imagination, and wisdom. Blue represents healing, calmness, tranquility, creativity, inspiration, and also depression, thinking of the blues. Purple represents power, psychic abilities, divination, third eye, intuition, guidance, but also prosperity, justice, royalty, and wealth. Pink can represent forgiveness, friendship, romance, self-love, happiness, and harmony. Orange represents success, attraction, uplifting, thoughtfulness, joy. Brown represents stability, decision-making, practicality, and manifestation. Gold is the masculine principle, or the god. It represents the sun, wealth, success. Silver represents the feminine principle, the goddess, lunar, and it can also represent childbirth and motherhood, things like that. So those aren't definitive, and there's anything that the color means to you is what's most important. So if a certain color brings a certain response to you, then that's really what it means to you. You don't have to necessarily only go by correspondence lists. Obviously, you want to use what the color represents in your own mind as well. So, for example, let's say you're casting a money spell. What should you use? Some people might say, well, let's work with Jupiter in purples and things like that, because Jupiter represents wealth. While others say, no, let's use the sun. We're gonna use the sun and gold because the sun represents success. But other people say, well, wait a minute, money is green, so shouldn't we use money, which would be Venus and sometimes Saturn, depending on the shade of green. So there's all kinds of different ways you can go. It's just you need to figure it out from your point of view, how you're orienting your spell. And that's why the craft is an art. There's choices that you make. Now, for instance, with Jupiter tends to work better for expanding on something that's already there. So if you want to use a Jupiter energy and purples for your money spell, that's a good way to go if you're wanting to grow something that's there. But if you're already broke, that might not be the best way to go. In fact, I've heard many stories of people that have gone to working Jupiter spells when they're completely broke, and it seemed like it expanded on their poverty rather than expanding their wealth, in which case you might want to work with the sun or with Venus. So the sun is gold. So a gold candle or gold magic is a great one for money. And gold and green work well together in a money spell. And green does represent fertility. It does represent abundance and prosperity, but it also is the color of money in many countries. So the other thing you want to think about when you're choosing colors for, let's say, a candle spell is how many candles. you just want one candle, or do you want a series of candles on your altar? Sometimes you'll want one candle that represents you, in which case you want maybe your sun sign, the zodiacal sign of your sun sign to represent you. So let's say you're in Aries, you might use a red candle for yourself, or you might just use a white candle to represent yourself on the altar. And then you might surround that candle that represents you with a color or several colors of other candles that represent you being surrounded by a particular energy. How do you choose how many candles to work with? There's a lot of different ways you can go about that. If you want to use more than one candle, if you're not working with actual numerological correspondences, say with the Kabbalah or other systems of numerology, a good rule of thumb is that odd numbers represent change and even numbers represent stasis. Now, that's not always the case. Like I said, if you're working with a particular numerological system or with a Kabbalistic system, that won't necessarily hold true. But if you're not, and you're just going for multiple candles and you don't know how many to use, even numbers are a good thing to use if you want to keep everything the same, or if you want to stop something. If you want something not to grow. Whereas if you're wanting something to change, odd numbers are better. Think about it. If you add two odd numbers together, they become an even number. But if you add two even numbers together, they stay even. So it's just a simple rule of thumb if you don't have any other available information on numbers. Now, for Kabbalistic correspondences, all of the Kabbalistic planetary correspondences start with the number 3. So that would be 3 would be Saturn, 4 would be Jupiter, 5 would be Mars, 6 would be the Sun, 7 Venus, 8 Mercury, 9 Moon, and 10 planetary Earth or manifestation. So you could use those if you wanted to, or a different system of numerology if you wanted to. Or you could chuck the idea of numerology completely and just create a pattern on your altar that is pleasing to you. Sometimes you might put the candles in a particular configuration, like let's say at the point of each point of a star, like maybe a 5-pointed star or a 6-pointed star, etc., to give you a particular energy that you want to work with. So you can have a very simple setup for your candles. You could have just a single candle that represents your desire, and that's very powerful. There's nothing more or less powerful about using a single candle than using multiple candles. It's just how you want to build your spell. Sometimes we'll put candles around other things, other objects in our spell work. Let's say we're working with a poppet. A poppet might be like a doll that you're making out of clay or cloth. And so let's say you had a doll to represent you, and you decided that doll was colored, let's say green, to represent healing for you. Or maybe you wanted to do purple to represent power or wealth. Or maybe you would do the doll brown to represent stability and practicality, or something like that. You're depending on your spell, and then you surround that doll with a particular number of small candles in one or various colors that represent something to you. And you're making a statement on your altar based upon what your desire is. So that statement really needs to come from you. You can read through candle burning books and spell books and things to get the idea about how to do things. And sometimes there's certain spells that have a lot of sort of ancestral or Akashic energy because they've been worked so many times that sometimes you just want to do the spell the way it is in the book. That's fine. But my favorite way to do spells is to craft them according to a statement that I'm trying to make to my deep mind. So all of what's going on my altar is a microcosm of the result that I want to get. So making a statement with your candles is a wonderful way to do that. Sometimes you might want to make a talisman. And I have a bunch of different courses in how to make talismans to represent your desire. And then you can take that candle and burn it on top of the talisman to so-called charge the talisman. And that's just a way for you to meditate and see what you want to accomplish. While that candle's burning, that color, the vibration of that color is very apparent in your mind. So you've got those visual cues there as far as that color vibration plus that talisman that you're working with. Maybe you're working with a charm bag. So you take a piece of cloth, and that could be one of the colors. Or it could just be, a lot of times we just use red for charm bags, or just use red for inks, just because it's such a symbol of our will, regardless of what the outcome is. So you could either use a piece of red, like a square of red fabric, or a square of fabric colored according to your desire, and fill it with things. Put things inside of it that represent your desire. Maybe some herbs. So you can just get Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs and look at what are some of the common herbs that represent your desire. And you could put an odd number of things in there. You could put some herbs, maybe you put a stone, maybe you put a petition in there where you write your will, and you fold that up and you stick that in there. Or maybe you have a planetary square that's, if you look in I have a free booklet on the angelic squares. Those are planetary squares. And you can put a planetary square in there and roll it up. All kinds of stuff you could put in there. Pieces of metal that represent the planet or the idea of what you want. And this just takes time to become more and more aware of what different things correspond to. And that's just a lifetime learning. But as you do learn that, you can incorporate different things so that you can put them in like that charm bag. And let's say you had an odd number of things in the charm bag. You can gather up the corners of the fabric and tie it off with some ribbon to turn it into the bag. And then you place that at the base of the candle of the color of your desire. If you're just doing pure candle magic without any of those other things like talismans or charm bags or poppets, things like that, you might want to, well, even if you are using those other things, you might want to take like a nail or some other sharp implement and inscribe in the side of the candle either your desire, like write it out if there's enough room, or a symbol for your desire if there's not a lot of room. Just a plain symbol, and just inscribe it into the wax. Most of us usually like to anoint our candles. Now, you can buy occult oils to do this. There are all kinds of them available commercially. You can buy money draw oil and black cat oil and all kinds of different magical formulas. And some of them are great, some of them are questionable, but whatever you like, you can use those. But you can also just take some plain vegetable oil, like almond oil or something like that, and put it in a bottle that you can put a stopper in, and then also add to that oil a little pinch of pure salt. And shake it up, and you'll notice that the salt never dissolves. It always stays on the bottom. But that can be your anointing oil. And you can take that oil and you can anoint your candles. You can anoint anything you want with it. You can anoint yourself. You can anoint your chakra points. It just brings power and blessing to whatever you put on it. So the way you anoint your candles is you take your candle after you've inscribed something in it, or if you don't want to inscribe anything in it, that's fine. But do the inscribing first. And then the last thing that you're going to do to the candle before you light it is anoint it. You just take a little bit of that oil on your finger, and you start in the center of the candle on its side and go all the way up to the wick. And then you start back in the center again, and then anoint it all the way down to the base. And you can do the base, going to the base first and then up if you want, or you can go up first and then to the base. It represents as above, so below. So I usually go up first and then down, but it's really not that big of a deal. Just make sure that your candle holder is nice and sturdy. And as a general rule, when we're working with candle magic, we like to let the candle burn down and out all by itself when we're done with the spell. We don't want to reuse that candle for another spell. You want it to burn down and out by itself. Now, you may be working a multiple day spell, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But so if you are, then you'll extinguish the candle and put it away, and you'll bring it out and light it again the next day, and extinguish it and put it away, and then bring it out and light it again the next day for however many days that you're working. You might not be doing that. You might just be working a single day. So either if it's a single day spell, then on that, when you're done with your whatever you're doing, you're chanting, you're meditating, you're visualizing, all of that, or on the last day of the spell that you finish that, you'll want that candle to burn down and out by itself. It's important to remember that when you do this, and if you have multiple candles, the same goes with all of those. It's important when you do this to remember fire safety, because burning down your house is not a magical operation. You don't want that, and I've seen it happen before because people were careless with their candles. So one thing you can do is just always be in the room while you're doing that burn down. Just always be in the room with it. I mean, that's what you should do. But an added protection for that is you could stick that candle inside of a large bowl that has a little bit of water in it that's coming up to maybe to the middle of the candle holder. And that way, if for some reason the candle did tip over, it would put itself out into the water. So always being very, very careful when you're doing candles. Now, how do you determine how many days to do your spell? Well, it can be up to you. You could use an odd number of days, just arbitrarily. I'm going to do 3 days. I'm going to do 5 days. I'm going to do 7 days. You can do however many days that is the number of a planet that you're working with. Or you could do an entire waxing cycle or an entire waning cycle if you wanted to. If you felt like this was a big deal and that you really needed to work a long time on this, you could do an entire waxing moon cycle from new moon to full moon. Every night you're going to do something. Or an entire waning moon cycle from the full moon right before the dark moon. So that's up to you. There's not necessarily a more or less powerful way to do it. Sometimes a one and done is the most powerful thing because you're telling your deep mind, this is it, we did it, nothing to worry about. Sometimes you really need to program things. You need to really just have some repetition going. Another way to do things is I'm going to keep doing this every single day until I get a click, until I get a sense that it's done. That's a lot of times what I will do is I'll just continue my spell once a day until I get a sense, oh, this is cast. I really feel comfortable. I really feel like this is going to happen. I don't need to do this anymore. I'm just going to let the candle burn down and out and I'm done. Now, if you can't burn candles, you can still work color magic. You don't need candles. The colors that you choose to wear are so important. That can be everything. You just bless your garment and you wear that and you feel like that garment is drawing to you whatever it is that you desire. It's through your garment that thought form comes. Or maybe you have different color scarves that you use, or you change the different color on your different color of altar cloth, depending on what you're doing. I used to use placemats. I would get little placemats in different colors, just plain placemats. So instead of having a big altar cloth, I would just change out the placemat depending on what I was working on my altar. And that color was something that I could just visualize because it was right there. You can, when you're working color magic, you can work your visualization so that your whole aura is pulsating with the color that you're working with. Remember how we worked on building thought forms? This is a wonderful way to employ color magic. When you're building that thought form, we started off by seeing it, just charging it with that witch light, and then you change the color to whatever color of your spell, to a green thought form, or to a purple thought form, or maybe it's a green with gold flecks thought form. It's your thought form. You do you. You do you. So that's another very powerful way to work with color magic, is that way. You can make a plain color talisman. I love this technique. It's so simple. You take a piece of paper and you write out what you want, and you enclose it in a circle. So you draw a circle around what you want. And so you have like, maybe I now have my rent paid or whatever it is. You draw a circle around that. You can just do it freehand, or you can use a compass or a jar or something like that. And then you take some sort of coloring medium, a crayon, a marker, whatever, and you just start coloring over the words. And you just color solid color all over those words. Don't worry about if it's a lighter color, you'll see the writing through. If it's a dark color, you won't see the writing anymore because you're coloring over it. Doesn't matter. You're just imbuing your desire with the color by coloring over it with that crayon, or coloring over with that marker or that paint, or whatever you're using. And then you just sit and you see that color moving through that desire, and you see that desire being fulfilled. And then you just hide that talisman away somewhere until you get what you want, and then you can rip it up and throw it away. It's that simple. And sometimes when it's that simple, people say, well, that can't be very powerful. I want something harder, but it's not necessarily the case. Sometimes it's actually usually the simpler the spells are, the simpler the spell, the more powerful and effective the spell is oftentimes the basic rule. So that's another great way to employ that color magic. I've totally lost where I am on my outline here. I've done talismans, I've done charm bags, I've done candles. What else did I forget? Days of the week. Oh, what to do with all of the remnants. We call them remnants. That's the witch dew. That's what I used to call it. The incense ashes, the wax drippings, the everything, right? So if there's a talisman involved, you put the talisman away. Some talismans you want to carry with you. Some talismans you just hide away. Depends on what you're doing. So if it's a poppet, you'll want to wrap that up in possibly the color of cloth according to your desire, or just a plain white cloth, and you hide it away, right? Until what you've accomplished is there, and then you'll disassemble it, or you'll tear up the talisman. So you put all that stuff away first, but then what do you do with the candle wax? What do you do with the incense ashes? What do you do with that water, right? So, or whatever you've got on your altar. There's all kinds of ways you can deal with that. The common way is just to take it into the garden and bury it. That's what I've always done. But not everything that people use is good for the garden, right? So make sure that you find out what the most responsible way to dispose of refuse is, depending on what you're using. If you're using beeswax candles, you're safe and you're good to go. Sometimes those petroleum-based candles are not good for the earth. So you have to do a little research. I find personally that once everything's done, I don't care about the remnants. I'm not as superstitious about it as a lot of witches are. I just throw it in the trash, or throw it in the recycle, or wherever it's supposed to go, according to the refuse department of my local government. I usually just let it go, because if that's not where my thought form is. My thought form isn't in those ashes. My thought form isn't in that wax. My thought form is alive and well, either out doing something for me, or it's being housed in a talisman, being housed in a charm bag, being housed in a poppet, wherever I've placed it. So for me, I don't really care to make a big ceremony about the wax and all of that. But if it's important to you, you can bury it in your garden. They used to put things like in running streams and stuff like that, but it's just like, I just don't feel comfortable putting refuse of any kind in a running stream. It just doesn't seem ecologically sound to me. So I always try to not worry so much about what to do with the remnants. I usually dispose of them like I would any kind of garbage, because that's not where the magic is. The magic is in what I created, not in what's in the waste product of the spell. So I differ from a lot of people in that regard. See, what else am I missing here? I know I've forgotten something. Talked about how you can use your color magic in your attire, and you can just get really into that. You can just make sure that you don't have to like wear all white or wear all red, but just make sure that you incorporate a little something. It can even be an undergarment while you're doing your spell. Just making sure that you're wearing a little something, or wear a sash, or wear a scarf or something like that, so that you can really feel like you're wearing that color while you're doing your spell. And you can also do that in your day-to-day life. If you need a little bit of Mars, make sure you wear a red shirt that day. If you need a little bit more help with your mental clarity, maybe you'll wear a little yellow or a little lavender. Now, if you want to add, I forgot to tell you this, if you want to add essential oils to your anointing oil, you can do that. Just be really careful that you don't put so much essential oil in the anointing oil that it burns the skin. It really doesn't need to be overpowering in fragrance. It should be a very subtle fragrance. And you can make little oils for yourself. You can make money draw oils. You can make success oils. You can make banishing oils if you want to. I used to do a lot of that, but I just got so sick of having little bottles everywhere. And I just, especially since I'm sort of, I would guess I would call it in the broom closet. It's not that I'm afraid of people finding out. It's just I don't want people knowing what I do. I like to keep my craft private. And having a bunch of occult oils and a lot of occult incenses and things like that is just another thing for me to take care of. So that's why I just use one anointing oil. And that's it. I don't have a bunch of little oils. If I'm incorporating fragrance, it's usually a spray perfume. And I have just a small collection of commercial perfumes. Like I have a rose, I have a verbena, I have some eau de cologne, I have a lily of the valley. See, because for me, I do everything with and I'm not saying you should do it this way, but I'll just share with you how I work with perfumes. I work so much with the planets, that's my main focus when I'm doing practical magic, that for me, I have a bottle of jasmine perfume that I've had for years and years, and I'll probably never use the whole thing because I don't do lunar rituals every single day. But so when I'm working with the moon, I use that jasmine perfume, and I spray it in the air, or I spray it on my talisman or whatever I'm doing, or I spray it on myself. For Mars, I'll use either geranium, or I really like honeysuckle for Mars, just a floral perfume that I get from perfume.com. For Mercury, lily of the valley is a great Mercury. Also is lavender. Those are great for Mercury. For Jupiter, I like to use any purple, but lilac is usually what my go-to for Jupiter. So I use a lilac perfume. But any purple, you could also use lavender. Lavender is easily shared by Jupiter and Mercury. For Venus, I usually use verbena or rose. You can use musk. You can use, all kinds of stuff. Whatever you like. But that's why I usually just use a plain rose or a plain verbena for Venus. For Saturn, I usually will wear a linden flower perfume or patchouli. And for the Sun, I usually will use some sort of sandalwood perfume or orange blossom or neroli. Those are usually what I go for the Sun. So I've over the years invested in a bottle of perfume sacred to each planet. So I do have those, but that's it. I don't have to keep buying occult oils and stuff like that. And with me, since my all-purpose fragrances that I use are verbena and eau de cologne, such as 4711, I don't need any other perfume. I can use those for everything. I could just use verbena for everything, or just eau de cologne for everything, if I want to perfume things. So those are all-purpose. But I like the specific perfumes though, because they do really help to focus my mind on that particular energy. So there's all kinds of ways that you can do. Now, if you're an incense burner, I don't burn incense indoors anymore. I used to really be into it. I just don't anymore, just because it's just not always appropriate, like with my situation and also with my paint job. I don't like a lot of smoke. I don't like a lot of smoke in my house. But you can use incense on your altar. Now, what I use on my altar to bring incense into the mix is I use an oil burner. And you can also use an electric burner. So I also have an electric incense burner, and that's more like a vaporizer, right? So it heats the incense material up so that you get a vapor of it, but it doesn't actually turn it to smoke like when you're using incense charcoal. But you could use incense, or you could use an incense burner, or like I said, I use an oil warmer, and that's where you put some oil. It's got a little cup that you can put some oil, and then underneath it there's a candle, and you light the candle. It heats up that water, and then you can put your incense material in that, or just put some essential oils in that water, and then that turns into a vapor. And so that's your incense. So that's my go-to thurible anymore, is just an oil warmer, just because I don't tend to do a lot of burning of incense. So there's all kinds of ways around things. If you want to burn candles, but you can't burn candles, you can use LED candles. You can. I know I've had people really ridicule me for that, but it works. It really works, especially if you can't burn candles, but you like the idea of candles. You can. Most of those LED candles are hard to find in color, so you'll just use the white, and then you can incorporate color on your altar in another way. Now, you can't burn it down until it goes out, because those LED candles last forever. But what you can do when you're done with your spell is leave the LED candle lit for another hour at least to simulate the burn down, and then you can turn it off. So instead of burning your candle down and out, if you're using an LED, just leave it on for another hour or longer, and then turn it off. So that's just an option for you if you want to use candles, but you can't. But you don't need candles. You can do it any way you want. The most important part of magic, especially even including with color magic, is what you do with your mind. So you want to be able to see what you want in a relaxed state of mind, and then create that feeling of that color surrounding the image of what you want. And when that image is being imbued by that color, the deep mind accepts it as being true. And so that thought form has a lot more intensity because you've used the power of color, whether it's through just pure visualization, whether it's through burning a candle, whether it's through a garment that you're wearing, an altar cloth, the color of flowers that are on your altar, or any other way that you choose to employ that color. So I hope that was interesting for you, and we will have our last lesson next week, so I can't wait to see you then. Until next time, blessed be. Boy, that went a long time. Blah, 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 quack, quack, quack. Okay, here we go. I have a couple questions. I created a couple of money bags. Can I take them apart and reassemble them with new intentions? No. I did them once with no specific intention. Well, I don't know how doing something without an intention doesn't really do much for you, but each time you do a charm bag, it should be for that spell. And then you can disassemble it and throw the ingredients away. So when you have a particular charm, same thing with a poppet. Once you're done with the spell, you just are clear that this is no longer flesh and blood. This is now just clay. This is no longer anything other than fabric and herbs or whatever's in there. And you just untie it, take it apart, and you can just throw everything away. Or you can just dispose of the whole thing at once. Now, if it's all organic and it's your property, you can also just bury the whole charm bag. There's nothing wrong with that. But you just want to, again, be careful that you're doing things that are ecologically sound. So, but I wouldn't reuse a charm bag, personally. I have a question. I don't know if I ever worship a deity, but can eat the offerings or no? No. If you're putting offerings on your altar, I wouldn't necessarily eat them afterwards, but you can eat with them. So you have your portion, you give them their portion, and you can have your libation with them. You can drink out of your cup, and then you have a little cup for them. You have your food, and then you have a little food for them, and then you eat with them. But then what you do with that food is you recognize they've already partaken of it, and then you can just throw away the leftovers, and that's not being disrespectful. Just be careful of how you dispose of things, because sometimes people think, well, I'll just set this out for the birds. Well, not everything is good for birds. Not everything, and sometimes you get rats instead of birds, So just be very aware that it's not unmagical to just dispose of things. It's okay to dispose of things, because by the time it's ready to be disposed of, it's already waste. So you don't have to be magical about your waste necessarily. That's just my opinion. Well, hopefully that was helpful and interesting for all of you. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I just love being with you. And we'll be back tomorrow with a Witch's Rosary for those of you who like to practice that Witch's Rosary with me. And then on Saturday, we'll have Psalm Magic for those of you who like Psalms. Sunday, we'll have a live stream lecture, which should be good for anybody, no matter what you like or don't like. And then we're off on Mondays, and we'll be back with our tarot class again starting Tuesday, starting our next week off. Thanks so much to the amazing moderators. Today we had the lovely Honeypaw, the lovely Jennifer, and the lovely Diane. And we will see everybody very soon. Blessed be.